You guys, I just need to tell you right now that I just recorded the entire intro to this episode without the camera recording. So, woohoo! For me, let's start over. Hi, welcome to Sidebar for the first time. I hope you're well. I am doing really well today. I'm a little all over the place. I feel a little off kilter. My day kind of took some turns that were unexpected, really positively unexpected. I ended up running some errands with a friend of mine who is like about to do this crazy project. So I was happy to accompany her for that. I also gave her some bread, which I've been meaning to do, and she gave me a jumpsuit that she made for me. So cute. So yeah, that's my day to day. Man, I'm super bummed, I gotta tell you, about the opening of this podcast. I was telling you all about my drink, which I spilled. You guys, I spilled it and I wasn't even on camera. It's just a special sidebar thing, whether it's recording or not. There's a spill somewhere happening. Okay, I was telling you about my drink, which is from this brand Element, LMNT, but I'm pretty sure it's Element. And they're an electrolyte company, and this is their sparkling electrolyte water. So I use their electrolyte packets in my water bottle that I use when I'm working out. But then they just came out with these, and I thought, how cute, what a fun little soda alternative, up our hydration game on days I'm not working out, which is more often than not these days, despite my best intentions. It's hard. It is really difficult to tick, excuse me. Wow, that was weird. To tick all of the boxes in life. Man, should we just start there? It's not what this episode is about. But this could really take a turn. No, okay. I used to be a morning worker-outer type of person. And that was great. That worked great in my routine. It kept me on track and it was lovely. I love to train like I'm taking a Peloton ride or sometimes a Peloton strength class if I've guilted myself into it for long enough. Guilting only because I know that it's good for me to build muscle and to strength train. Resistance training is good for you. So I hear. There's some pretty howling winds outside, and I'm sitting obviously in front of our fireplace, which I really got to put a fire in this one of these days. Or I guess more like have Sam put a fire in this one of these days. Except for the fact that I'll just be so hot and sweaty, but it would be so aesthetic. Oh well, we'll have to go with this for now. But you can hear the wind coming through the chimney. So what was I talking about before? Oh, yeah. Oh, salty. Okay. So, used to be a morning worker-outer. That worked great for me, kept me consistent, built some habits. I would train fasted, eat breakfast, afterwards, set up, ready for the day. I don't have to think about it. It just felt like I had a clear runway, clear mind. It was awesome. Loved it. Now in the mornings, I have a puppy. Okay? He's about to turn 1. So maybe this is a temporary problem. But now I'm in a habit to take the dogs to the dog park every morning. I know. You all know. I won't shut up about it. I talk about it all the time. But the reason that I talk about it all the time is because obviously it's great for the dogs, but mostly because it's been so good for me. Like, I feel like I, for a really long time, may have been checking the healthy habit daily, not daily, a couple times a week, movement, exercise routine, etc. But I was not checking the box of feeling like I was a part of a community or spending much time meeting new people and getting to know people, or just socializing in large groups, really ever. And now at the dog park, it's like the same people every morning and we have the best time. Our dogs are friends. We're all friends. We're just there to talk about our dogs, which is all I really want to do. And it's fabulous. And it checks a box of social need, community need that I have in my life. And it feels so amazing finally to have that box checked while I'm not working. When I'm working, that's kind of built into the environment that you're in. When you're filming something, it's your entire life. You see people from dawn till dusk, and you're all like having a party together all the time. I mean, you're working. Sometimes you hate each other, but everything works out. Everything, comes out in the wash. But when I'm not working, I've always just been kind of like, because I don't have a work environment, obviously, like an office or coworkers, and I don't, whatever. So anyway, that has been amazing. I wouldn't change it. But now I'm like, what do I do with my workouts? Because I'm at the dog park. In the very early morning when I first wake up, I'm like cleaning the kitchen. I guess maybe I could fit it in there, but I want time to eat my breakfast and like go shower afterwards. I don't want to be going to the dog park all stinky. What am I talking about? Okay. Anyway, don't know how we got there, but I'm not taking my electrolyte powder as much because I only do that during my workout, so I'm not working out that much. And so that's why I purchased these electrolyte sparkling waters. I guess that's how we got there. Wow, it is windy. Speaking of windy, okay, real pivot, but I don't know if any of you are watching The Traitors. Oh my God, I'm obsessed with The Traitors for one. I absolutely love it. And Gabby Windy, who was one of the Bachelorettes on the Rachel Gabby Bachelorette season, is on the season of Traitors, and she's to die for. Everybody knows, but I followed her on TikTok for like forever, and she's hilarious, and I love her so much. Okay. I also wanted to say, before we get into it, oh my God, I love you all so much. Thank you so much for sending in your Valentine's woes, okay? If you're not up to speed, at the end of my last video, I made a request for you all to write in or send a little voice note in to my email, the email for this podcast, sidebarwithkennedymcmann@gmail.com, with your love woes and your love problems you need advice with for our special Valentine's episode, which is next Wednesday. There's still time to send things in, so if you would like to submit your questions, the advice that you need, your love woes, it's all Valentine's Day, so it's all love-centric, okay? Feel free to send those in. Do a little write-in to the email address or record yourself talking about your problem and email that audio file to me, and it'll be included in the episode. If you want to stay anonymous, just let me know. It's no problem. And yeah, send them in if you want. But thank you so much for those of you who already have, because you're the best. I can't wait. Okay, I think that's everything. Also, you may have noticed that this is the second sidebar episode to go up on a Wednesday, second one in a row. And I am very much shooting for an every Wednesday sidebar episode because, of course, it's Wednesday, my druids. Forever and ever and ever. Except for that one time it was Fridays. But it's all about Wednesdays over here, the sidebar. So expect a new episode every Wednesday for the foreseeable. I think that's all of our housekeeping. Am I right? Is there anything else? Not really. I have been wanting to get into today's topic for almost 3 years. I want to share with you all a voice note that I made for myself in a moment of inspiration for a future podcast episode. And I've always wanted to come back around to this when the time felt right, and it felt right for whatever reason today. And so I just want you to listen to this audio recording first, One, because I think it helps articulate what my jumping off point was. There is some very film industry centric language in here, my work self versus my personal self, but I'm getting too far ahead. I just want you to listen to this. It's kind of cringe, but it's also, I think it was like a real moment of vulnerability for me that I just wanted to capture so that I could share it when the time felt right. So I just wanted you to see sort of where this concept stemmed from, and then I'm going to open that up. Hi, Leonard. Hi. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I'm going to basically crack that initial realization open and apply it to some more universal kind of themes. So don't be put off if you're like, I don't relate to this because of X, Y, and Z. Because I think it's pretty universally relatable. But I'm going to play this now, and then we'll get into it.
This is just a podcast idea to discuss this kind of revelation I've just had, which is I've always felt like there are two versions of myself. You know, the Kennedy that I feel deep inside, and that is most in alignment with who I am as a human being outside of my job. But then the Kennedy that is who I am because of my job. And, you know, that feeling of, oh, well, I can't really give in to, for example, a full body acceptance and body love because, you know, if I didn't have this job, if I didn't have to be Hollywood Kennedy, then I wouldn't care and I would be much more loving towards my body and I would be able to be that person, but I just can't because of my job, because I need to keep this eye of the tiger, like fierce pursuit of near impossible perfection in my body and my face. And you know, these are things I wouldn't think about, and I'd have so much more room in my brain and my heart if I didn't have these things bouncing around in my head all the time. But I have to, because that's the Kennedy that I need to be in order to succeed in this industry. And I had this really stark realization. I saw myself in the reflection of a window. And I thought, what if I let myself believe that I'm enough? What if this Kennedy that is my truest self is me? What if that's enough? What if I am brave enough to say, yeah, that's great enough. She is worthy of all facets of my life. She is the person I want to bring to the table.
That kind of makes me a little emotional. I'm not going to lie. Obviously, part of that is, you know, kind of cringy and whatever, but there's a lot to take in there. Obviously, it starts from a body image perspective, but that's not really where this concept has evolved to necessarily in my brain, though can totally be applied to that. There's a couple layers here. So I think the first thing that when I listen to that comes to mind is this desire, or not even a desire, this compulsion to maintain the eye of the tiger is kind of how I put it in that voice note. This intensity of always having my eye on the ball, because if I were to stop doing that, I would just fall apart and I would fail and I would let myself not be so rigid. And I can't allow that to happen. And like I said, this is sort of a body image conversation I think I was having at the time. And I don't know how much I've really gone into that journey, though, I'd be happy to talk more about it. And it was definitely a big thing I thought about a lot, especially during Nancy Drew. I think I just felt like I was becoming a woman, and this character I was playing was 18, 19, and I think I just had, and then also just being on camera all the time and seeing other people around you and fitting into clothing and not having to think about your body when you're standing and all of these things that come with the film industry, whatever. I was thinking about all that stuff a lot, and I had phases of being healthier with it and less healthy with it, which always backfired, by the way. Just gonna throw that out there. Everything I did that was like trying super hard, like never really amounted to what I was hoping it would amount to anyway. The times when I was like more lax or just generally more balanced, or the times that I like achieved the aesthetic goals I was going for. And anyway, I don't want this to get taken over by that whole conversation, but I think in this moment, I was sort of wrestling with feeling like I can't allow myself to accept my body as it is, or my face as it is, or as, which like I've made a commitment not to do anything to my face, so I don't know what I was thinking I was doing about that. But like, I think I was so terrified to not grip so hard in the fear that I would like let myself go, quote unquote. And the way I articulated in that note, obviously, is I see myself in the reflection of a window and I think, what if I allow this to be good enough? And to me, that thought at the time, and in other areas of my life, this thought has even more recently felt dangerous. That if I dared to accept myself where I was, whether that be my body or something emotional or some criticism I've had, about myself, it felt dangerous to allow myself to accept where I was. And God forbid I stay that way. God forbid I don't reach perfection. And I think there's another layer that I want to touch on before we kind of go deeper into both of them in that voice note, which is that there are two sort of versions of me. And I think a lot of us can relate to this. This was for me, my personal self and my work self, but I think that can be very relatable, or even just your private facing self versus your public facing self, and how we put on all of these assumptions about what people want from us. And I think that's the other layer here. There were certain things I had learned to accept and to even love about my truest self, but I had already made the decision and the ruling that those parts were not good enough, I guess, for the other parts of my life, or that they wouldn't be accepted for whatever reason or what have you. So I think I felt like I was desperate to maintain a standard, and that it was my job to hold myself to that standard, even though the standard was, and this kind of doesn't get into the body image stuff because there are some external standards there, even if they're not directly stated to you. There's a lot that you can infer about the way that our industry runs, so putting that aside. But these other expectations and other parts of my life, or parts of myself that I wasn't showing to other people, that I needed to really keep myself in line. I really needed to be careful and watch closely, because I could slip. And if I let go, God, I'm just going to turn into a heathen. Which is a hilarious concept, and I've talked with my therapist about this, and she's like, yeah, your super ego is really overactive, my friend. But yeah, it's ridiculous to make that jump from someone who's holding themselves to ridiculously high standards in a way that is hurting them, and just loosening the reins a little bit. It's like, I'm not going to go pure hedonistic just because I've loosened the reins a little bit. But it's hard to see that. And I think I was afraid of those parts of myself. So these parts of myself that maybe I personally could accept, but that I wouldn't dare show. I feel like I'm all over the place. I hope that you're sticking with me. It's hard to thread this needle mentally for me right now. So we have those two facets. And then we have this moment where I've realized, or I've had this kind of daring idea, almost rebellious idea of, oh my God, what if I just went, yeah, this is great. Actually, Kennedy, I think you're in a great spot. I think you're really doing awesome. And not just glazing over the surface, but really daring to feel that for real. And I think it hit me so hard because the thought of accepting that I am enough risks everything that I am. And I think that mindset has been really true for me. And it's so funny because I'll be talking about something with my mom, some issue I'm having, or something I'd like to work on within myself, and she'll say, Kennedy, you're being really hard on yourself. And I'm always like, oh yeah, whatever. Or I'll be talking about something with Sam and explaining a way that I want to grow, or if I feel like, if we've had some sort of tiff and I've kind of taken a misstep, I tend to try at least to be really open about saying, I messed this up. I need to get better about this in the future. And a lot of times he'll say to me, God, Kennedy, you're being really hard on yourself. And I would be like, oh yeah, whatever, they're just trying to be nice. And this just keeps happening. I keep hearing this from people in my life that I open up to. And time and time again, I would say, oh, they're just appreciating that I'm taking ownership. They're just appreciating that I'm, saying, hey, I messed up, and they just want to make me feel better, even though it's true. And I deserve to be this hard on myself because I need to grow. And I think the last couple times I've heard it, I've finally started to hear it and go, maybe I am too hard on myself. Maybe I am too critical of myself. And hearing that a lot recently brought me back to this voice note where I had the daring thought of, what if, in terms of my self-growth and general improvement as a human being, what if where I'm at right now, exactly as I am, is enough? And is like, great. And so I started thinking about this again, and I thought, oh no, I can't think that. Me? No. I need to keep up the grind, or else I'll slip into becoming someone horrible. Like, articulating that out loud makes me feel insane. Like, what? I can hear myself almost as a stranger or as a friend and be like, Kennedy, that's insane. You don't go from this rigid to this loose. Like, you just go maybe here. And I think I've started to play a little internally with, I'm perfectly okay with this. I didn't, nail it in this difficult conversation. I apologized for what I did wrong, and I'm going to let it go because I'm honestly in a great place. I'm doing a great job. When I say that, inside my body, it's like, whoosh, like this trap door just like opens and I'm like, I'm free. I don't know why it's a trap door. Now it sounds like I'm going into a trap. Opposite of what I'm trying to say. I mean, it's freeing. It's freeing. Because all of a sudden, magically inside myself, when I look at all of my flaws in the face and all the times that I've messed up and all of the ways in which I would like to improve, all of the things I consider my Achilles heels, and I go, you know what? Because I'm somebody who really tries, and because I know I have shown up to grow in the areas that I've really needed to, and I know that I show up for myself and the people in my life in an active way, when I take all of that and say, I accept myself fully, 100%, in spite of all of those things, it's like, huh? Really? I feel so much relief. And sort of like I'm in really nice, lukewarm bath water. I'm like looking around. This is my internal life. I'm looking around inside myself and going, hey, I got a lot of room in here. I got a lot of room to really show up and be present. I have a lot of room to not grip so hard to everything. I have a lot of room to not be so rigid. Wow. Huh. And you know what comes after that? When you have space and you have freedom and you feel supported by yourself, the chances of you growing or me growing into an even greater version of ourselves feels so much higher, doesn't it? Obviously, there's always an element of holding on, of trying hard, of muscling a little. There's always an element of that in accomplishing goals, whether they be internal or external. However, I think for people like me who maybe fall on the part of the spectrum that is perhaps too rigid, too intense, too self-critical, that in fact, maybe I might be getting in my own way of where I actually want to go. Because I think accepting where you're at and who you are is not an endorsement of anything negative you might be carrying with you, any baggage you might be carrying, any bad habits, any places of growth that might still need tending to. It's an acceptance to start from neutrality, to start from support. And I witness this too in other people that I have relationships with. I've learned in a lot of my relationships, I'm sure this varies person to person, but when I just give them space and say, you've got this, I believe in you, I've watched them flourish and step into things that I thought maybe they wouldn't otherwise step into without more encouragement or more, outside guidance. It's amazing when people just feel supported, how much easier it is to get to the places you want to go. And I can feel the sediment kind of settle inside of me in a way that lets all those negative thoughts, all those critiques that are just clouding everything all the time, just settle to the bottom. And then I look around and all the water's clear. Before it was all muddy and I was like, don't mess up, don't mess up. Now I feel like I can look around and go, oh, what beautiful water. I'll see what I can do. And there's such a freeing, loving sensation that to me is way more motivating than this one that's like, do it, don't mess up, which I feel like is the voice in my head a lot at the time. And I really think there's a lot to be said for meeting yourself right where you're at and saying, you know what, this is great, actually. And no matter what other story you're telling yourself, like the story I was telling myself at the time I recorded that voice note was that I'm not worthy of showing up as my truest, most accepted self. I'm not worthy of that. And I don't think I realized that's what I was telling myself, but that's absolutely the message there. And I had given myself this excuse to keep holding on and to keep being rigid and deeply hard on myself. And I've started to realize too that the narrator inside my head, and this is something that I've learned as someone with a long history of OCD, and I'm sure a lot of you out there can relate, I can't always trust the evaluation that I have in my head about my own behavior. I can't see it for what it actually is. And I think that there is a lot to be said, for me listening to the people in my life that kept telling me the same thing, even though I refused to believe them. I just put assumptions on what their meaning really was, or I just said, oh, I don't want to cut myself that kind of slack. I need to hold myself to this super high standard. And I think what I just wasn't seeing was that I was going in the opposite direction by holding myself to that rigidity, to these expectations, by letting my voice of self-criticism really lead. And I totally would, because I wanted to scare myself into behaving the way I thought I was supposed to behave, or to meeting the goals I thought I was supposed to be meeting. I was scaring myself into it. Part of the reason I used to have such an intense and consistent workout routine, for example, which this can be done healthfully, so don't, it doesn't always mean this, but for me, it was because, I was really worried about how I looked. And now I don't really care. And I mean, I care a little, but not nearly as much as I used to. Letting myself not care has just made me really crave it. Like I really want to find it in my schedule. Going back to what felt like a total non sequitur at the beginning of this conversation is now kind of coming in full circle and saying, like, now that I've let myself just accept my body, and this is funny that it started. It's funny that, a few years ago when I recorded that voice note, it was about my physical appearance. And now it's totally not. It's about my behavior. And I think I have come to accept that part of myself, to say I do accept my body where I'm at. Now I can't wait to find time to exercise. I can't wait to cook meals that are really nourishing and good for me, but that also aren't so calculated. It's so, I think that's almost an example of how it's played out, which is essentially that I don't have a problem with it anymore, that I've found a really natural balance. I feel really balanced with the way that I eat. I just don't even think about it. Like the noise isn't there anymore about that problem. And it's allowed me to just see it way clearer and just make decisions about it and establish habits that don't have any drama attached to them, By being so hard on myself and refusing to accept that I'm enough where I'm at, I've just created all this drama and all this noise in my head about how I'm not doing good enough and I'm not showing up well and I'm not incorporating that one thing that I really meant to do this time that we got into an argument and blah, blah, blah. Like, oh my God, it's exhausting. And how am I ever going to do anything? How am I ever going to be present in these situations that I want to show up in an empowered way, in a way that I'm proud of? How am I ever going to do that if I can never be present with myself because I'm so stuck in this thought tornado of all the things I'm doing wrong? It's like, I need to accept where I'm at so that I can clear out enough space to see anything for what it actually is. And I think it's amazing and it's beautiful to say, I am enough right now, just like this. And how liberating it is to be fully accepted, and how that acceptance all of a sudden like blows open all of the doors with like a beautiful spring breeze. You just go, a lot of weird metaphors in this podcast, but hey. And you just go, look at the view. I feel great. Life is mine to be seized instead of like, life is mine to be analyzed and criticized and manipulated. Like, what? No, thank you. This is really helping me take this in and take it seriously. Because am I onto something? Not that this is like revolutionary by any means. This has been said a million different times, a million different ways. I really want to embody this. And I think I can. And in fact, I'll just decide right now that I will. And not go through the world guilty and apologetic all the time over things that really aren't worth the energy. And drop all this criticism and say, hey, I'm doing a pretty great job. Be open-minded, But I think this fear that if I let go, I'm going to just totally collapse and everything will be awful. I'll be awful. It's just not realistic. So I think this is what my therapist has been talking about in terms of radical self-love. And radical self-acceptance. Really, this was also inspired by my therapist. Shout out, Shlomit. I'm going to take on this challenge. I don't know about you, but I dare you. I think we both take on this challenge that this week we say, we are enough this week and always. And see how that goes for you. I'm going to see how it goes for me. We'll see if we turn into heathens. Something tells me that we won't. And I think, this is another sort of microcosm of just my general trend in life, which has been easing up in areas of my life. And I've talked about this before, but again, I find personally, at least, it useful to hear a lot of, and to talk through a lot of the concepts that kind of end in the same point, but just framing them different ways and getting to that end point from different angles, I think really helps stir some things up in my brain, and hopefully in yours too. So I have talked about this before in a way, but this feels like a particular challenge to me to accept exactly where I am and really move from a place of true personal liberation. Pretty exciting goal. Scary though. But honestly, right now, obviously I've done a lot of work in this area in my life, but it's feeling really bright. I feel really optimistic about it. Like, oh yeah, I think I can do that. I think I can like myself. Watch this. Oh gosh. Well, I hope you don't relate to this. No, if you do relate to this, I hope that it brings you a little comfort that you're certainly not alone, and maybe challenges you to push for a little more allowance, to allow things to be what they are, allow you to be where you are on your journey. And life is long. Can't get to everything all at the same time, or else you'll have nothing to do. Anyway, I think that's all I have to say on the matter. I really hope that you enjoyed this episode. I would love to hear your thoughts. Let me know. Do you relate? Do you totally not relate? Do you think this is a bad idea? Let me know. I'd be very curious to hear. I love hearing your input and talking with you all in the comments. It is awesome to hear your feedback, and it means so much that you spend this time with me. If you are on YouTube, if you could give this video a like, that would be so awesome. Thank you, and subscribe if you're not subscribed. Maybe turn on the notification bell so that you know when I upload. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, if you could leave this podcast a rating or a review if you're on Apple Podcasts, I would so appreciate it. And yeah, leave your comments down below. That also really helps other people get introduced to the show. So thank you so much. It means a lot. And again, if you want to send anything in for the Valentine's Day episode, if you would send it in by Saturday, let's say Saturday will be our rough cutoff. This is Saturday the 8th. If you could send those in by Saturday the 8th, either write in or send me a little audio file. The audio files will be included in the episode, but let me know if you want to stay anonymous. And then the writer's inners, I will just read aloud. So whatever you prefer, let me know. If you want to submit for that, email that to sidebarwithkennedymcmann@gmail.com. You'll find that in the description of this episode or of this video. I think that's all I have to say. Okay. This is the end. I thought I would get up close and personal with you to say goodbye. I hope you have the best week. I will see you next Wednesday for your next episode of Sidebar, and probably somewhere in between with maybe another YouTube video. If you don't, check out my YouTube videos, the ones that aren't the podcast. You can do that. I do little vlogs, and I'll be doing some gaming content coming up here. Okay. I love you. I hope you have a great week. You're perfect just as you are. I always feel like I'm forgetting something. I'm not. Okay. Love you. Bye.